Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be, she wants to feel independent. It's probably not a good thing. I've got a couple emails here. These are a couple short emails from two different guys that are basically having the same problems, and that is their girls basically seem to be more interested in spending time without them than with them. So before we get into these two short emails, I got a quote that I'd like to share and go through that I wrote. And it says, when people feel out of control or that their life circumstances are too random and unpredictable for their liking, they tend to try to control themselves, other people, and their environment as much as possible. The need to feel free is an innate human quality that must be honored. If you fail to honor the free will and right of self-determination of your friends, coworkers, lovers, family, etc., they will all naturally want to remove themselves from your presence to regain their freedom. There's a quote I read quite often by Thachnit Han. I can never say his name right. But he says basically that when you love somebody, you've got to love in such a way that the person you love feels free. And people, guys, obviously in particular, this particular case, when it comes to dating, when a woman interacts with them or behaves in a way that's not to their liking or that's unexpected or is not what they thought was going to happen, and they don't know what to do, they don't know how to fix it, they try to control things. They try to force things. They try to get her to spend more time. They usually step up calling more. They usually go out of their way. Like if the girl says, hey, I'll call you later when I check my schedule, and she doesn't call as quickly back as he thinks that she should, then what happens is he gets upset and he leaves another message. And then when he hasn't heard from her the next day, he calls her again. And those are the little things that these are not the kinds of behaviors a man who is very successful with women and a guy who has choice with women, a guy who has 2 or 3 women blowing up his phone and want to hang out with him, they're not going to be chasing after a girl because they're going to be busy with women who really want to spend their time with them. And so these kinds of behaviors are common to guys who have scarcity in their dating life, and women can sense this. And they're going to run from you like the plague if you exhibit some of these behaviors like these guys are doing. So let's get into the first email here. He says, hey, Corey, me and my girlfriend have been together for 7 years, and she had just recently told me that she needs space, but with no explanation to what her definition of that means. Well, it just means that she wants to spend less time with you because her level of attraction for you has been slowly dropping. It takes time for a woman to fall in love. It also takes time for a woman to fall out of love. And so, obviously, the things that you're doing and saying are not things that are creating attraction with your girlfriend. They're actually driving her away from you. And what she is talking about are the kinds of things a woman mentions as she's slowly backing away. In other words, she's in the process of breaking up with you, and you don't really realize that. And she's trying to say things in a way that it doesn't hurt your feelings. That's why women won't come right out and say, hey, I don't love you anymore, and I wouldn't sleep with you if you were like the last dude on earth. Women are going to come out and say that. They're not going to say, you know what, I just ain't feeling it anymore, and I'm out of here, and I don't want to be your girlfriend anymore. They don't say things like that because they don't want to cause a big scene. They don't want a problem. Their worst fear is that they're going to break up with you, and you won't take no for an answer, and you won't leave them alone. And so it's like they kind of try to slowly back away and figure that you kind of get the hint of what's going on. If you just look at her actions, at the end of the day, she wants to spend less time with you. So he continues on, though as a man, I generally know what that means, in which I came to find out later I was correct, in that it meant she doesn't want the title of being my girlfriend. Now, just last night, she tells me she wants to feel independent. He says it's very confusing as we still live together and are intimate at times, but she has become distant and indifferent. So when she says she wants to feel independent, what she's basically saying is the way you're making her feel in this relationship is like she's losing her freedom. The freedom to be who she is, to come and go as she pleases, to hang out with her girlfriends, to focus on her career, whatever it is that she does for a living. And the things that you're doing are causing her to feel less and less attraction. But when a woman starts talking like this is what she says when she wants to break up with you. And so my advice to you would be to immerse yourself in my book so you start cleaning up all of the other little behaviors and things that you're doing that are turning her off. Because unless you change your behavior immediately, she's going to be moving out or be asking you to move out pretty soon. And I'm sure you obviously that's not what you want, because you wouldn't have written me in the first place. But you got to understand that that's what's going on here. And so, like when I talk to guys and I coach guys, one of the questions I ask is really common is what percentage of the calling, texting, and pursuing is initiated by her. And anytime the guy tells me that he's doing more than 20-30%, it's always out of whack. In other words, she's not falling for him. She's wanting to spend more and more time apart instead of more and more time together. And so whenever a guy is doing more than 20-30% of the calling, texting, and pursuing where he's initiating it, it is too much. It's too much pursuit. And what it does, it doesn't give the woman enough time to miss you, to wonder about you, for those feelings, those deep, strong, intense feelings of attraction for you to develop. Because you're basically always in her face. And so I got another viewer who's in a kind of a similar situation. So he says, "Hey coach, before I read your book, I was doing everything wrong. My girlfriend's interest was extremely low, and I'd say about 35 to 45%. Well, if it dropped that low, then you're pretty much, you're toast, dude. Put a fork in you. That relationship is over if it was really at that level." He says, "And she would make every excuse under the sun not to hang out." He says, "I've been home almost 3 weeks now from school, and I've only seen her once for dinner and for 20 minutes at the mall." He says, "We've been together for almost 3 years. However, our relationship has predominantly been long distance because I'm away at college an hour and a half away." Well, if you're an hour and a half away, she should be coming up to see you once a month, and you should be coming down to see her. When you're away from her, let her reach out to you. I guarantee you, without even talking to you, that you're doing more than 20 to 30% of the calling, texting, and pursuing. So you're probably calling and texting this girl 60, 70, 80% of the time, and she's only doing it 20 to 30% of the time. And that's why the situation's there. It's like you're like the guy that puts a cake in the oven, and the cake says it's got to take an hour to cook, and you're like every 5 minutes you're going, is it done yet? You're opening the door and you're letting all the heat out. It's like letting you're deflating the sexual tension in essence in your relationship because you're over pursuing. And so when she misses you and she's wondering about you, then she reaches out to you and tells you things like, "Oh, I was thinking about you. I was wondering about you." And you're just not giving this girl enough space. And we'll get to a point in his email here where you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So he says, "I come home the majority of weekends during the off season, but I'm the only one with heightened anticipation because you're not giving her the space that she needs to develop that anticipation. It's a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. And there's never going to be a time or a moment where she can become unclear about you because you're always blowing up her phone. You're always wondering what she's doing. You're always pestering her, basically." So he says, "To make a long story short, she's lost her interest because I've been focusing too much on trying to save our relationship." Sounds like the illusion of action to me. You're thinking you got to do all these things to get her to love you and want you back, but you're actually driving her away more and more because of your behavior. He says, "I'm being afraid to lose her, which has led me to over-pursue and become needy. She's already mentioned to me that I'm too needy and that I'm too much of a puppy." He puts in parentheses, "I know it's pitiful." He says, "But I didn't used to be this way." He says, "My question is, she's on vacation right now, and I asked her for some space until she returned to work on myself." That was stupid. It's just totally unnecessary. He says, "I read your book over and over, and now I feel confident." He says, "However, since we have had a long-distance relationship, we communicate mostly over the phone, and I know that's a cardinal sin, so how do I make this adjustment seamlessly without her going nuts on me?" just let her come to you. When she reaches out to you or she wants to talk, hey babe, great to hear from you. Let's talk on Skype, or I want to see you. Why don't you come on up for the weekend? Something simple like that. And she's like, oh, I'm unsure. I got to check my schedule. And just say, hey, well, figure out your schedule and get back to me. I'd love to see you. I got to run. And then you just get off the phone. Then you walk away, and then say 2-3 days later she calls you again. You're assuming that she's checked her schedule. Hey, so what'd you figure out? When are you going to be able to come on up? You just keep giving her that same response. Make a date to get together, to hang out, have fun, and hook up. He says, because I'm home on summer break and I can't be busy all that much, so he's worried about being too busy when she calls or whatever. It's not that you've got to be busy all the time when she calls. It's like you've got to be focused on your purpose and your mission in life, and you've got to have other things going on other than just sitting around staring at your phone all night waiting for a phone call or a text to come from your girlfriend. He says, so she comes back this Tuesday, and she broke the silence last night while being out with her friends that she's thinking about me. So in other words, you stopped chasing her, you stopped pursuing her, and you just gave her some space, and then lo and behold, what I say, it's a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear, so she hadn't heard from you in a couple days. She texts you to say that she's thinking about you. What I would have said back is, oh babe, that's sweet, it's great to hear from you, I'm thinking about you too, I can't wait to see you when you get back. Text me when you're in town, and let's get together, meet up for a drink. That's what I would be saying to her. Hang out, have fun, and hook up. And so he says, should I continue to stick to my guns and not respond? What do you expect not responding and ignoring her is going to do? How do you expect ignoring your girlfriend is going to help your relationship? You just have to back off enough to where she starts initiating contact. And then that way, when you make a date, it's kind of her idea, because when she's ready to see you, she reaches out to you. And then you just assume it's because she wants to see you. Make a date to hang out, have fun, and hook up. It's really simple. He said, or should I send a short humorous text like you talk about in your book and stop responding, mentioning that I'd like to talk about it over dinner when you return? There's nothing like really to talk about. You don't want to have like there's some like big discussion you got to have. Then she's going to want to avoid it and not want to hang out, because she's going to want to figure that there's going to be some kind of big confrontation. Hang out, have fun, and hook up. That's what you need to focus on doing. You just need to back off enough to where it flips to where she's doing 70 to 80% of the calling, texting, and pursuing. And if you do just that, it sounds like with where your girl's at, it'll get things in line where they need to be, and you'll actually start seeing her again. But you're still just pursuing way too much. He says, I'm leaning towards sticking to my guns and waiting until she comes back. And I'll continue to read your book, and I appreciate everything you've done to help me and all the others. So, like I said, that's what I would do. If she reaches out, talk to her, chit-chat for a few minutes, and then just say, hey, I want to see you when you get back in town. When you're free to get together for a drink. Make plans to hang out, have fun, and hook up, and then get the hell off the phone. You're also doing a lot of talking, and since you're going to be in town at the same time, you want to get together and hang out. And if you're not always talking on the phone, then now you got a reason to hang out together, because you're probably acting like her therapist on the phone by talking to her and texting her so much. So, like I said, finish getting through the book, and you'll start to see, the light bulbs will continue to go off as to where you're going wrong. And if you'd like to get my help personally with a challenge or a situation that you're having of your own, you can do that by going to my website, click the products tab, which will be at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions for booking a paid phone coaching session. And I will talk to you soon.